I'm Lisa Pickering. Welcome to CITV's Press Talk. Here's the most recent news and information from the government of Bermuda.
Good afternoon, members of the media, and thank you for coming on this Friday afternoon. Bermuda is strong, Bermuda is resilient, and Bermuda is blessed. That is the island-wide sentiment after having come through Hurricane Nicole yesterday afternoon. In a few moments, the Minister of National Security, the Commissioner of Police, and the Director of the Bermuda Weather Service will provide an update regarding government services, public safety matters, and post-Nicole weather information. As you can see already, there is some sense of normalcy returning to the island, with main arteries being cleared, power being restored, damaged property being repaired, and businesses reopening. Since the passage of the storm yesterday afternoon, tremendous progress has been made. However, there is still work to be done and services to be restored, and I fully expect that that will continue this weekend. At this time, I want to take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to the Minister of National Security, Senator Jeff Barron, the Commissioner of Police, Michael DeSilva, and the entire Emergency Measures Organization for their fearless guidance during what was undoubtedly a very anxious and tense time for everyone on the island. These men and women across many different organizations rode out the storm away from their families and friends. They did this to ensure the safety of all of us, and for that, they deserve sincere gratitude. The consistent messages of preparedness and public safety certainly resonated with our community, and that helped tremendously in ensuring there was no loss of life, no serious injuries, and with our ability to recover. And finally, I must commend the people of Bermuda for our perseverance and our strength as we prepared to face Hurricane Nicole. I had the opportunity earlier today to visit parts of the island, and it made me tremendously proud to see Bermudians out and about doing their part to get their homes, neighborhoods, and Bermuda back to normal. It filled my heart with a great sense of pride to see residents working together and helping one another following what was truly a very serious and dangerous storm. Without question, we are very strong, and we are very proud people who have weathered many storms before. So a special note of appreciation to all of the people of Bermuda for your tenacity and your resilience. Before I invite Minister Barron to say a few words, I want to reassure you all that the EMO is continuing to work around the clock, and be assured that Bermuda will be back to normal very shortly. Thank you, Bermuda, and please stay safe. Minister Barron, over to you.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, members of the media, for coming today, and really for your work over the last few days and spreading that consistent message, and frankly helping to ease the anxieties of a community facing what's the biggest storm we've been told in quite some time. And Premier, thank you for those comments. Your message today was very important to share with the community. And as a leader of the country, it's so important, and we're thankful that you've come here to say and to spread that message to the community. As Minister of National Security and Chair of the EMO, I certainly wish to add my voice to those in the community in commending the members of the Emergency Measures Organization and their steadfastness and professionalism pre, during, and post-Hurricane Nicole. There are some incredibly dedicated individuals from our public and private sector agencies, and it was an honor to serve side by side with them during this storm. With that, the EMO met this afternoon, and here is what we can provide as an update of this time. Throughout the course of the day, we are seeing signs of Bermuda returning to normal. As the Premier indicated before, there's many signs of that. People out, they're doing their own cleaning, but tremendous amount of crews out from the regiment, etc., cleaning up a bit, and I'll get into that. We've seen the first flights arrive this afternoon, and there have been no flight cancellations for today. We can also report that regular cruise calls will remain and resume next week. The work crews from Ministry of Public Works, Department of Parks, the Royal Bermuda Regiment, and Belco continue their cleaning and restoration works around Bermuda. These works will continue into the weekend. And like the Premier, I had the privilege of spending some time with the Royal Bermuda Regiment as they conducted their cleanup works around the island. As you can appreciate, there were significant road obstructions around the island following the hurricane, and I want to commend the Royal Bermuda Regiment for working incredibly hard from first light this morning to clear those roadways. The damage reports coming in from around the island include residential roof damage, downed power lines, poles, and trees, and some flooding. As we noted earlier this morning, the main roads are mostly clear. We continue to ask motorists to use caution as there is still debris in the road. Minor roads are being assessed and continue to be cleared. As it relates to public transportation, bus and ferry service has been canceled for today. However, ferry service will resume tomorrow, and assessments are still being conducted with the aim of having bus service resume tomorrow as well. We will provide a confirmation update to the public later today regarding buses. It will be business as usual for government on Monday, with all offices being open. We are currently assessing our government schools, which includes an assessment of power and structural damage, and we are aiming to have schools reopen on Monday. We will confirm that with the public early on Sunday. The hospital is operating as normal. Garbage collection resumed as normal today. The Hamilton docks are doing assessments, and we expect a public update over the weekend. And the government shelter reported 36 members of the community using that facility during the hurricane. And at 10 a.m. this morning, those residents returned and the shelter closed. These are pertinent public service updates, and the EMO will continue to provide progress reports as we continue to get Bermuda moving again. And lastly, before I turn it over to the Director of Bermuda Weather Service, I cannot emphasize enough about the importance of preparation. Folks, we met early in the week regarding this storm. We had a tremendous amount of preparation, discussions, contingency planning. We met many times with the EMO. We had side chats about it. We got the message out. We engaged new stakeholders. We had a social media conference so that we can get to other demographics within the community with a consistent message. And I firmly believe this has paid off. I'd like to leave with a few thoughts regarding the preparation. I think we need to stop saying that Bermuda was spared. Indeed, we should be saying we were ready, because we were. We should stop saying that we were lucky with this storm. Instead, we should say we were strong. And let's never forget that we, as a community and a people, united. Instead, we have to remember how wonderfully possible that actually is. Kim, thank you.
So my job at this press conference is to give you the good news about weather conditions for the next 5 days. For those of you who have damages, we actually have high pressure moving in, so the conditions will remain as pleasant as they are outside today most of the time. A nice northerly breeze. Keep conditions cool for those who don't have power on, which I'm one of them. I like to have my cross breeze. Northerly winds basically for the rest of the week, and you might see a couple of isolated showers, but nothing really significant going on in the next 5 days. So beautiful sunny skies. Thanks.
Good news. Commissioner.
That's the best news we've had all week. Where were you on Tuesday with that? There isn't very much for me to say except to maybe characterize two things. One is with my hat on as Director of Operations for EMO, and just to really compliment the way that the EMO agencies work together on this occasion. The communication was first class, the collaboration was first class, and as the Minister said, it enabled us to plan early and be prepared. It also enabled us, when we rode out the storm, to be able to mitigate some of the emergencies that cropped up, even though there weren't many to deal with. And immediately following the storm, it enabled us to respond quickly and get all of our priority tasks done in really short order. The closest point of approach was at 12 p.m., I want to say, and by 4 p.m., 4 hours later, the regiment and the police were already opening up the the roadways to make sure that we had emergency access from the fire station and the hospital out east and west. And of course, the exception to that was the causeway. The other note to make, I think, is with my police hat on, just to say that I was very pleased that we had a relatively incident-free storm, a relatively crime-free storm. That, of course, was marred, as you've reported, by a shooting incident last night, which is very unfortunate and completely unrelated to the weather storm. We did not have many calls for service in the 24-hour period around the storm. The fire service fielded about 60 calls. Most of those were weather-related, where parts of roofs had blown off. Very few calls for service with injuries. In fact, we only had 2 minor injuries, one of which involved transport to the hospital. In terms of the crime-free nature, there was some speculation, I'll call it, on social media about planned robberies and burglaries that were going to take place when the power went out. Now, bear in mind, this was on social media, so whether or not it was true is anybody's guess. But as a proactive measure, the police sent out patrols during the eye of the storm. We don't always do that. We have to make sure that it is safe to do so. But with the advice from the Weather Service, we knew that we had a window there. And so in Somerset, in St. George's, and in the city of Hamilton, for about that hour period around 11:30, we had our high axle vehicles patrol the city and put some police officers out there. All in all, an incident-free storm. We're very grateful for that.
As we predicted in advance of Hurricane Nicole, we were expecting to have surge in places that were vulnerable to surge, about 6 to 8 feet on top of the high tide and on top of the wind waves. And in some places, it's very difficult to mitigate that. We were actually talking in the EMO earlier today about the canal, Mills Creek area. You can't stop the sea from coming in. So there are certain mitigation factors that you can do, but it's really hard also for us to gauge how high the inundation is without having, for instance, sensors there and being able to model the water, which we don't have in Bermuda. So, but another layer onto that was this was a very wet hurricane on the front half. So beyond all of those factors which I just talked about, there was another factor of about 5 to 6 inches of rainfall that fell. And so that soddened the ground, so you don't have a lot of ability for drainage in your sodden ground already. So there were just a lot of factors that made it a very wet end to this system. Does that answer your question?
But we didn't actually get to the height that you feared.
In certain, we did, but it did not exactly align with high tide. So the surge was 6 to 8 feet, but because it actually was off-centered by a few hours of high tide, which was that's the blessing in it actually slowing down in the beginning. But the problem was it slowed down in an area of high sea surface temperatures, which allowed it to balloon into that category 4. So, you weigh up the pros with the cons, and it ended up being not as much inundation as could have happened. And then the other factor also is the swell direction. So certain places are more vulnerable to inundation and wave impacts, such as the causeway. There's a very particular direction that it needs to be in for the causeway to be impacted as horribly as it was during Fabian. And luckily, with the slowing down and just very minor wobbles, that did not occur this time. So,
You've been watching Press Talk right here on CITV. Join us next time for all your government news and information. I'm Lisa Pickering.